Calvary. Welcome back to the Calvary Connection podcast. Good to be with you. Coming back, I'm back into the mix here.
It's great to have PJ back.
It's good to be back. And all three of us now, Vicar Jamie, Pastor Janelle, and myself, coming to join with you in conversation about this fine book, Becoming a Hybrid Church. Jumping into chapter 5 today. Chapter 5, which is about servanthood in the hybrid church. Great topic.
I loved how they started out this chapter with the whole mission trip.
Oh, yeah.
Imagery of doing stuff that they never would even dreamt they would have done. And
getting in over their heads.
Messy work. And then saying, like, what a fine mess you got ourselves into.
And so often it does feel like that, right? When we like maybe even a little ahead of ourselves, like we're so passionate about wanting to do something, we jump in and then it's like, oh God, what are we doing? What are you doing?
Right.
What have you gotten us into?
Are we actually prepared for this?
Right.
For sure.
Or I was invited to do it. I was excited with the invite, and I never thought through what we'd have to do. Like, whoa.
Well, and so much of servanthood often is like that. And so I think it's important, if we're going to be discussing servanthood in the hybrid church, we talk a little bit about what we mean when we say servanthood, right? I mean, this is a concept that we hammer home a lot in church, in sermons. The Bible talks about servanthood a lot.
Right.
So what do you think of when you think of servanthood?
Yeah, and I think when you get it in that context as Christian and public leaders is that we do think about how Scripture has modeled this for us. And a lot in the Old Testament, but my brain automatically goes to the New Testament and how Jesus was servant to all. So the washing of the feet, just flipping everything upside down to think that Lord doesn't mean to lord it over, but actually to come and serve, be one of us and serve. So, I mean, that's an image that comes to mind. What about for you, Vicar James?
Yeah, I'm thinking of Martin Luther. Is it perfectly free, but also a dutiful servant to all? This kind of paradox of knowing that servanthood is not something that we have to do, rather it's something that we feel called to do and empowered to do as an expression of this gift of grace that God has given us.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that Jesus really hammers home throughout his entire ministry, right? You've got the parable of the Good Samaritan right after they're leaving the Samaritan village and having all this whole terrible interaction. The various parables, or the Maundy Thursday story, the washing of the feet, the serving of one another, just being an example of what it means to live out love.
Right.
And that's, when I think of servanthood, that's, at least before we had this conversation with the book, what I would have said is that servanthood is like a physical manifestation of love. Love put into physical action. And now I'm questioning whether or not physical is the right word for that, because there are other ways to serve besides in actual space.
Right. Yeah, and I think too, a little bit of our society is being seen serving is important.
So the motivation's a little different.
So we get a little status thing from that. And really what COVID taught us was when you couldn't be seen, were you still motivated to do it in the same manner? And again, I think going back to the definition is really to think it's how to try to be as God is in the world and see as God sees in the world. That is at the center of it. That's what motivates that. That's why it's not a have to, it's a get to, we often say in the church. And so we get to serve, we have to serve. There's no strings attached there. But I think too, COVID taught us something here about our pride being involved in servanthood a little bit, because we didn't get credit or weren't seen as servants, as public Christian leaders.
Yeah, and that place between have to and get to is especially relevant as we enter into this fine mess that we've gotten ourselves into, that God's gotten us into, of how do we begin to envision what this looks like, what servanthood looks like in a new way, in a way that many of us haven't really considered or had the opportunity or reason to consider exploring in that avenue. And I think it's good to remember the get-to aspect of servanthood when it comes to the challenges that might be figuring out what serving is in this hybrid model, right?
And I totally agree. I mean, I think so much of what this idea of this concept of servanthood does boil down to the motivation. As Christians, we're constantly trying, at least we're hopefully, are constantly trying to align ourselves with, like you said, Pastor Janelle, how God sees the world, how Christ
Yeah.
sees the world, seeing through those eyes
Yeah.
is our ultimate goal.
Right.
And the closer
Right.
we are able to align ourselves with that, servanthood as a concept hopefully is just the natural outflowing of that, right? It's not something that we feel compelled to do, but we do because we witness a need, and love that we are feeling brings us to that place.
Yeah.
Regardless of it's in a physical space or if it's in an online space, it's more about who we are
Yes.
rather than what the problem is.
Right.
Right.
And I think often in what we focus mostly on is worship. So let's have a worshipful experience, like getting into scripture, wrestling with that, praying, singing, confessing, forgiving, all of that kind of stuff. And then people are like, well, Pastor, why don't you take a sign-up sheet and tell us what we need to do this week? And so
Need to do.
we're not
Yeah.
the service organization, though, but through worship, we hope that you're compelled to be as Christ was for us, or to keep Christ at the center so that love of neighbor flows naturally, like you said. And so we're not a servant organization that says we're going to find things for y'all to do to show that you're Calvary Lutherans out doing work in the world. That, again, you're reading the newspaper and you, out of compassion,
Right.
you feel like, I do want to get a group of 10 people together and we're going to meet this need.
Yeah. Well, and that's biblical too. I mean, you look at the way that Jesus taught with the parables. Again, going back to the parable of the Good Samaritan, when the Samaritan sees the man on the side of the road, he doesn't help him because he thinks, oh, I'm supposed to be a good person, so I should help him. Scripture says he is moved with compassion.
Yeah.
He is moved with pity, and he acts because he wants to help. You know, and so I think really that gets to what you're saying, Vicar Jamie, that if we're able to practice keeping Christ at that center and keeping that as our focus, it'll be a natural outflowing.
Yeah.
That's how it's designed to be.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And as we continue to move into a hybrid model and move more things online, it also helps us become more aware of this broader need.
Yeah.
I think part of becoming a hybrid church means looking outside of the walls of our church specifically, and seeing that Calvary Lutheran and the broader church, there's so many needs out there. And if we broaden that horizon, places where our gifts can meet those needs can become even more visible for us.
Well, that's a really good jumping off point to the next major focus for this chapter, which is like the idea of service on the ground in the physical space versus service online. Like, what does that look like? I mean, we're so used to that physical, right? Anytime we think of service or we talk about faith in action, right? It's about going and doing something in a place together.
Mission trips, soup kitchens,
Yes.
all
Hands
of
and
that.
feet of Christ, but
Yeah.
that's in the tangible sense of how we've practiced it.
Right.
But now how are we the hands and feet of Christ?
When we don't have actual physical hands.
Can't
either.
see each other's hands.
When
or
we're
feet.
just
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I was talking with you a little bit about this earlier, about how that's almost it's not a natural thing for me to engage with, because I'm so used to the idea of servanthood being embodied,
Yeah.
right? Being physical, so that this idea of
Yeah.
service online, it takes me some time to kind of wrap my mind around it, because
Right.
I'm not used to that idea at all.
Right.
And I think some of the examples that they use were really helpful for me,
Yeah.
to kind of see where that might be leading, right?
Because again, like we talk about the quilters gathering,
Right,
the
yeah.
crafters gathering, they are doing service things, but really it's in fellowship with one another.
Right.
And so how do you replicate some of what feeds us, again, the get to, is that I get to be with my friends and we get to do these things and be in fellowship together. So how does that replicate or translate? Again, I think for me, being the old girl, just how do you rework your mind with that expectation, and it even be a first thought for some.
Sure.
especially when there might not be this tangible product of your service at the end. With a quilter group, you know, if you're meeting online, you're not necessarily forming this quilt, you don't have that end product. If you're not going to a soup kitchen, you don't have those tangible expressions in the same physical way.
Yeah.
So how do we reformat our thinking and see that service doesn't necessarily require those physical embodiments of the work that we do?
Yeah. Well, some of the examples, and I like the fact that they gave examples of things that are both fully virtual, fully online, and things that are really hybrid, that have elements of both. To start with, I mean, the idea he used of the service church from Bellingham, Washington, about how it is still a fully embodied service ministry. Like, they go out and do things at the soup kitchen and the various locations, but all of the organizing, all of the communication, all of the prep work ahead of time is done online. Right? They're organizing themselves on a message board or on a website and making plans, and the only thing that happens in person is at the moment. When it's time to actually do it, then they meet there and do the stuff. So it is really kind of a hybrid approach in that the first part is online, the second part is in person. But that would still then leave out people who weren't part of the local community, right? If someone is joining in virtually from Australia, they're not going to be able to help out at a soup kitchen in Bemidji, Minnesota, right? Or if someone is sick and can't leave the house or has other things that would prevent them from being a part of the physical community, what then, right? So there's other examples here that were really helpful for me in that. Like, for example, that virtual crop walk piece.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so this was, for those of you who might be familiar with a crop walk, you know, an opportunity for folks to raise money, pledge money to go and walk for hunger or do those things, and having these large groups of people that come together and walk. Well, during the pandemic, we couldn't gather as large groups, but they've still able to do the crop walk by walking wherever you are, right? You still gather and say, we're going to do this on a day. You just do it from your house or from wherever you might be, which is kind of a cool idea.
You're still raising money. You're still making an effect towards hunger, but you're just doing it as individuals.
Yeah, and then the other example that I liked as well was when he talked about the recording for audiobooks. For me, that resonated because I've been heavily involved in podcasting as a means of building community and serving others in the role that I've had at Luther Seminary. That is a way that no matter where you are, you can be a part of this broader thing and this act of service, getting something out to other people. We did a lot of recording separately in different parts of the country, in our homes, recording scriptures, recording songs. Thinking a lot about the times and talents that we've been talking about in Calvary. People were able to share their gifts to this collaborative project that we could all do completely remotely, assemble, and get out there without any need to gather anywhere at all. And for me, that really felt like a great opportunity to serve others and to share our gifts, and something that I felt blessed to be a part of as well.
Very cool.
For sure. Well, that definitely ties into something that we can and have done here at Calvary with the idea of people at home, you know, recording prayers or recording a welcome or a song or something like that we can use in worship. And definitely that's a tangible gift that can be given to a community that can be done completely remotely.
Even if it's digital.
And that was really good feedback when we were able to have that. When we were able to have like doing the Lord's Prayer with different people at different places, families gathered together, saying a line. There's something really powerful in that.
Yeah, I like that too. It also helped me think back to the idea of the watch parties or the in church at home, whatever, gathering a few people that you safely can gather with, and again, if you watch church, you have fellowship, and then you pick a project to do together, a service project. Maybe it's from the service, maybe it's just someone plans it, but they get together and do something. It is not the full community piece, but it kind of acts as Acts 2:42 church, that we gathered together to do these things, and the outflow was we get to also serve our neighbor through some kind of creative project that, like you do for confirmation. I mean, the small groups.
Getting together as those individual groups.
And find a way, whether that's as individuals or as a group, to serve the neighbor out of love for neighbor. And so I think in some ways trying to find those things that we can empower people through a message board or something, that these are things that we need or do. Writing letters to people in jail. I mean, when we read from Paul, who's in jail, or whatever, those reflections are to know that those are ongoing needs. And again, it's not up to the church or the church leaders to say, hey, this is what you could do. But it is to say, as a Christian, I hear this message from church, from worship, and I get to insert here.
Be empowered by that. Yeah, for sure. And I think that what you say too about having that be an impetus from the congregation at large is really important, especially because, you know, I'm not sure how true this is for you, Vicar Jamie, but certainly for you and I, Pastor Janelle, our training was always very physical.
Right.
You know, everything was about the embodied presence. You know, and so for us, thinking about the ways that we can serve in a virtual sense isn't our natural formation, and so we could certainly use your help. So if you have ideas for how we could live out these servanthood ideas in a distributed or online way, let us know. We'd love to have conversations with you about that, either in person. You can come and talk to us. You can email us. Be a part of the Zoom conversation.
Absolutely.
We are always looking for ways that we can engage with you guys about this.
Yeah. And I think, again, the key is keeping Christ at the center and the culture of serving one another, serving your neighbor. That is the outflow that God has already done for us through Jesus and now through us.
Yeah, and it can be intimidating, but it can also be exciting, you know, as we look into how broad the world is, how many needs there are out there. It can be frightening, but the call to be creative and innovative and collaborative, even if we're not able to be in a physical space together, it truly is a blessed get-to for us. And this is something that I'm sure all of us would be happy to work collaboratively with as well, to bring some of these ideas into fruition. So yes, please do share.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be on the Zoom call and be hearing from all of you with some of your ideas and thoughts and insights into this as we continue to dive into what it means for Calvary to look like a hybrid church in this new day, and knowing that God is leading us and guiding us. But again, your thoughts can come at podcast@calvarybemidji.org. Join us on the Zoom call for some conversation, or simply give us a call and we can talk individually too. So.
Really.
Next week, we're on chapter
6.
That is about
evangelism.
Evangelism
in a hybrid church.
So that should be an interesting conversation as well. Again, teaching these older dogs new tricks. But we are up for the challenge, and we'd love to have you to come along. So have a great week. Join us next week for Calvary Connection. Until then, goodbye, church.
Love you very much.
Blessings.